was many nights. I'll be straight up. Many nights where I cried. A couple nights in the hospital and quite a few nights so I spent 6 weeks in the hospital, and then from that hospital stay, they moved me straight to a rehabilitation center. And I lived there for 2 months after that. So after the hospital for 6 weeks, then I moved for 8 weeks to a rehab center to where I lived there. And many nights, not being able to sleep just because I'm not able to leave the bed, anything like that. You wake up and have the case of woe is me. And, all I could do is be mad at myself, which I wasn't blaming it on anybody but myself. During those times, you realize that you're the reason for your problems, but you can also be the solution to your problems.
Yeah. And see,
so you can start taking action,
And that's where we go into your discipline, in that rehab gym. You wrote about that rehab journey. You said it wasn't easy, but it had to be done, if I'm not mistaken. And you said a day after that, you was like, you're doing the small exercises from a wheelchair, essentially willing yourself to walk again. Where did that determination come from? Were you telling yourself each morning, like, I'm rolling into rehab, I'm going to the gym, but I'm gonna work at it. I'm gonna, no matter the pain, I'm gonna get through this, and I'm gonna see progress no matter what. What was that mindset? Welcome everybody to the show. This is your boy, Michael Rashad Yerby. And you know what? Welcome back to the Unfiltered Friday, right here on the Zenroku Podcast Network. Today's guest is different. This man should be dead, but he's in his bonus round now, and he's making every damn day count. From reckless living and nearly losing it all to rebuilding his body, his mind, and his life. Austin Page became a competitive bodybuilder, crushing a 100-mile run doctors said he couldn't finish, and founded Gym Flow Coaching, helping hundreds crush their self-limiting beliefs. This isn't just a comeback story. This is what happens when you stop making excuses and start becoming the version of who you would admire. Tap in. This is raw, it's real, and it's all heart. Austin Page, welcome to the show.
Oh, man, Michael, I appreciate the time.
Yeah, no problem, man. You are just researching simply, I want to say, amazing in the sense of how you move and how you did things. I was just today going over things as well, and it was just pretty amazing. And
thank you.
No problem. And just going through everything, as we start to make sure everything is, get everybody in the chat quarterly. And I just had just one question. I'm just looking over your life, and I know I looked up past interviews, and you describe your life as, living a reckless life of vices, following a crowd. And you said it almost cost me everything. That's one thing you said. And it's like, and the question I have is like, that paints like a pretty stark picture of what you used to be, right? And can you take us back to that time of your life? Like, who was Austin Page back then? And then what was going on through your mind during those reckless years?
Yeah, for sure. So the flip of the switch that sort of created the person I am today, it wasn't a complete 180, but it started to plant the seeds or begin to cultivate who I am that you're seeing in the video today. Started on May 9th, 2010. It was a wreck where I nearly lost my life. It was from drunk driving, living that reckless rock star lifestyle, man. And before that, taking a few steps back, before that wreck, leading up to it was pretty much just that. Didn't have any plan for myself, no future, no long-term vision, and unconfident. Truly didn't like myself. And looking back now, the pieces all added together. I was looking for happiness in the same places that I was losing it, with drinking, drugs, chasing chicks, chasing parties, things that were sabotaging me and giving me like false happiness in the moment. Like most people, you dive for the drink because it makes you feel good in the moment. It cuts the edge. It makes you sort of escape for a little bit. Same thing with the drugs and or chasing things that really aren't serving you. Like the girls that really weren't for me, but were for me to just escape a little bit.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's me running away from not liking myself. And that was straight up. And in the moment, I didn't realize that, because I was always chasing these things and drowning myself, quote unquote, and these things that weren't ever serving me, right? They were just giving me a negative feedback cycle, and I would do it, feel good in the moment, later regret it, don't like myself, and I would chase it again, if you know what I'm saying. Any person that deals with vices and or addictions, I don't really know if I was addicted. I just didn't have a purpose to keep me aligned away from things like that. I don't really have an addictive personality. At least I don't think. But people that typically are addicted to those things, they chase them, and because they're feeling some type of happiness in it, but in return, it's just pulling more out of you, and it's making you want it more, or chase it more. It's a never ending cycle.
Yeah, I agree.
Came from a normal background though, man.
Yeah.
Typical like middle class come up. Parents were pretty decent. They were great, and but just didn't put in enough internal work with myself, and that was maybe lack of. I'm not sure what it might have been, but I was missing something, and I was chasing it through those things, and those things made me feel good. Weekend after weekend would lead up to me getting into that wreck, going to a party, not really remembering the night, blacking out, and getting in the car and wanting to go home, supposedly. So got in the car, went home, ran off the road, wrecked, tore my body apart pretty good, and now I have a story to tell about it.
Yeah.
But that was pretty much my history growing up. Was a normal childhood for the most part, whatever normal may be, but like middle class, of normal-esque. Didn't really have true hardships growing up, but I found them for sure.
Yeah. No, I got you. You turn in that point and you say you didn't make a full 180, but like most of us, we don't, right? It takes us time to, change that behavior, things that we
Yeah.
used to find satisfying, we don't find satisfying anymore. And man, I gotta commend you for you just to realize that and be like, you know what? I got a second chance. Let me turn around from what I used to do. And also how you stated that when you went through a situation, you wasn't really chasing it. You just thought that made you feel cool. You know what I'm saying? Like you know,
Yes.
like I used to, I used to drink heavy a lot as well, and I used to drink. I used to tell my friends, I'm like, I drink because I want to be more sociable. I want to be more relaxed and like, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, and that was the excuse, I made to myself, So I understand exactly what you mean when you say that.
Yeah.
And it's crazy you going from that in like well, I think it was in 2010 you had your accident.
Yes.
Yep. And then now you're changed. So what do you remember about that accident and its aftermath? Waking up in the hospital and realizing that you're still alive, but you're kind of broken up.
Dude, it was like a twilight zone. So I came to in the hospital, bright lights around me, and imagine like typical TV show, hospital TV show. You wake up, you get the bright lights, everything's white, and a bunch of people are around you, noises going off and shit like that. Nurses around you, and they were like, "Hey, you've been in a real bad car accident." I looked down, and my stomach's wide open, where they had cut me open to like help clean out some infectious stuff from where my intestines had ruptured. It just seems surreal and like unreal, like a nightmare. And I was like, man, this can't be real. And over the days, I began to realize it got real fast, actually, and had ruptured my intestines, broke both my legs from the knees down. And during that time, my future was like immediate future, even was uncertain. I was like, all right, well, am I going to make it through this? Because they would come in, they would bring the chaplain in some days to talk to my family and my parents, because my white blood cell count was so high that they were worried that infection, I would get sepsis, and that would probably be the end of me. So there was like a good week or two where things were questionable from infection standpoint, not just the wreck killing me, it was like indirectly the infection that was going to probably kill me. Fortunately, pulled through and things started to level out blood work wise. Even after that scenario got covered, as far as my white blood cell count going down and the infection starting to heal, now I had to worry about my two legs that I straight obliterated. I was like, all right, well, am I going to be able to walk again? I don't know. What is my life going to be like? And I had quite a few surgeries on my legs, 20 plus screws, metal plates and rods in them, steel and titanium plates. And the doctors were like, oh, you might be able to walk with a cane. We'll see. It depends. It's person to person. I was like, well, shit, what kind of life am I going to be living after this, So it was very uncertain and taking it literally day by day when I was in that.
So question, like you wake up, you're going through this, it becomes reality after a week or so. What was the conversations that you was having with your family after you got after the worst of it, I guess, passed and you're starting to go into somewhat of a normality?
Fortunately, my family was pretty good about it. They were super supportive. Obviously, they weren't trying to bash me about me being so reckless and nearly taking my own life with that wreck, but like they were there to support me and realize that things needed to change though. So they were giving me the nudges to try and start taking care of myself, even in the hospital, starting to move my body more, be more accountable for my progress out of there and stuff like that. For anybody that's been through something of that caliber or anything where you're getting put down for a little bit, you don't feel that great about yourself. Your self confidence is in the dumps. Your self talk in the dumps. You really lose motivation for everything. And so it definitely takes a strong family network or somebody around you to lean on through some of those times, which I was grateful to have some of my family there. But they were motivating me literally. I remember it would be daily, just, let's make it through today. Let's see what today brings. Doctors would come in with not a diagnosis, but like a shit. What word am I trying to say? When you're predicting a predicament or like
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
prediction of like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we may be able to do this by the end of the week. You may be able to go to a step down unit by the end of the week. You may be able to get moved to this floor by the end of the week, because I was in the ICU for a bit and at the emergent levels of the hospital, I was able to work my way down it. But, it was literally taking it day by day and seeing what happened and how I progressed. So I don't know. It was a weird time. Only time, obviously, in my life that I've ever been like that and that independable, or I wasn't able to be dependent upon myself. It was just everything had to
Yeah.
be done for me.
Mhm.
Going to the bathroom. Well, I was a long period of time during the hospital stay where I wasn't allowed to drink anything. Like for weeks, I wasn't even allowed to have like ice cubes. Like imagine how dry your mouth gets after like two weeks of zero water. They were just giving me IV fluids and they were feeding me through the IV as well. So it's like no food and literally like no liquids for a week or two, probably, if not more.
Jeez.
So like your first ice cube, when you get it, it's like glorious. It was some weird times, man. Weird times for sure. But it was day by day. That's how I took it, and that's how everybody else in my family was able to take it and sort of keep.
Yeah. Man, that's pretty cool, man. I'm
Yeah,
glad that your family, basically rallied behind you and helped you, you know what I'm saying,
yeah.
with that process. So like,
Grateful.
what was that like when you had a long road of recovery? You had to be like realistic with the basis of just trying to walk again. And what was that lowest moment for you during your rehabilitation period? Did you ever feel despair, anger,
Yeah.
at the situation? How did that push you through your darkest emotions as you started to rebuild yourself, you know what I'm saying, and your identity from scratch?
There was many nights. I'll be straight up. There's many nights where I cried. A couple nights in the hospital and quite a few nights so I spent 6 weeks in the hospital.
Hmm.
And then from that hospital stay, they moved me straight to a rehabilitation center.
Hmm.
And I lived there for 2 months after that. So after the hospital for 6 weeks, then I moved for 8 weeks to a rehab center to where I lived there. And many, many nights, not being able to sleep just because I'm not able to leave the bed, anything like that. You'd wake up and have the case of woe is me. And, all I could do is be mad at myself, which I wasn't blaming it on anybody but myself. During those times, you realize that you're the reason for your problems, but you can also be the solution to your problems.
Yeah. 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 And see,
So you
that's
can start taking action.
and that's where we go into your discipline, in that rehab gym. You wrote about that rehab journey. You said it wasn't easy, but it had to be done, if I'm not mistaken. And you said a day after that, you was like, you're doing the small exercises from a wheelchair, essentially willing yourself to walk again. Where did that determination come from? Were you telling yourself each morning like, I'm rolling into rehab, I'm going to the gym, but I'm gonna work at it. I'm gonna, no matter the pain, I'm gonna get through this and I'm gonna see progress no matter what. What was that mindset?
There's something that I think you have to have a rock bottom hit. It didn't have to be my scenario, but it has to be a rock bottom
Mhm.
to where you're like your back's against the wall and it's like the only route that you have is to do this work. Like, and you can put yourself in situations like that, self-inflicted situations or adversities like that. But for me, I had put myself in that through the wreck. So like my only way out was to do the work. But
Mm,
one thing that helped me keep going and show up and do the work, because I could have just sat in bed and said, to the physical
yeah.
therapist, no, I ain't doing shit. But because, they don't have to make you do anything, right? But one thing is, I began to feel better when I would do stuff like that,
Mm,
instead of some of those like worse off habits or bad habits that I was into before,
yeah.
things like exercising. And even though I wasn't into working out or exercising before this wreck, after it and during that stay, I began to realize that it made me feel good building myself up. I noticed progress in my strength. I noticed progress mentally, that I was doing stuff that I was uncomfortable, but doing it anyways, building grit, building fortitude, perseverance. And each day that I would get stronger or do that tough thing that I knew was going to be tough and I was nervous and scared of and anxious to do, and I did it anyways, it built contentment. It built confidence, and I'd feel better. So I just leaned into that good feeling. And that's what helped like drive me to do it again and again, day after day,
Yeah.
was knowing how I was going to feel afterwards. Typically, like most people, I mean, now I've built it to such a habit and it's my identity to exercise often and work out often. But like at first, not a lot of people like to do that. It's tough, it's uncomfortable.
Very.
But what you begin to love is the result and the way it makes you feel afterwards. That dopamine, that serotonin release, that confidence you build. Like you don't typically like the work, but you like what the work gives you. You know what I'm saying? And that was me.
No, yeah, and that's amazing, man. Like, and for you finding that confidence and staying consistent in your workouts, it helped move you from that rehab to the next step in the world of fitness. You even, I think you was working at a local gym at first, right?
Yeah.
Post recovery. How did fitness in the gym, that environment, play in your transition? Or did lifting weights and helping others in the gym give you a sense of purpose? And that's why we have what we have today with gym flow, or is the confidence in those earlier days of your comeback? Which was it, I guess?
I have to say a little bit of both. I can't say one or the other. And I wanted to take note, and it just clicked back in my brain right now. I want to share it because it was looking back was a big motivating factor for what got me out of the rehab center and to push and to also get that job at that gym. It was a longtime friend of mine. His name was John Helwig. And when I was in the hospital, he was in that same hospital too, but he wasn't there for a wreck. He was in there for cancer treatment.
Wow.
He was the same age as me. And after his chemo and stuff, or after his treatments, he would come up to my ICU unit and stop by and see me.
Wow.
And when I left the hospital, went to the rehab center, he came and saw me in the rehab center too. After one of his treatments, he was still getting chemo treatments. He was my age, young guy. And he stopped by at the rehab center a couple times and saw me and got me the job at that gym after I got out of the rehab center.
Wow.
And during all those times, I remember him going through his own shit, but still coming to see me and still doing everything he needed to do, which was looking back now, was definitely I think one of the things that helped keep me motivated and keep me pushing, right? And sad ending to the story, about 8 months, under a year after getting that job, John had passed from his cancer. And it was he was definitely placed in there during those times, I feel like, to definitely help me out and keep me moving.
Yeah, agreed.
It made me click when you mentioned getting that gym job. He was the one that got me the job. But I apologize for going on that.
No.
What was it? I'm sorry. What was the question again? I'm sorry. I want to.
Sorry, no, it's all good. I love it. I love it. Because you're basically talking about how that all happened, and that's awesome. Also, I was just like the confidence in those early days for you having a comeback.
Yeah. So no, it's built, man. And the work typically, and it's taken me a while to like realize this for anything, almost anything in life. The work comes before the belief. You got to do the work, take the actions, and that builds the belief in yourself. Like I mentioned earlier, typically, like you don't want to do that workout. You don't want to go for that long walk. You don't want to go for that long hike. Whatever big is feat that is giving you that anxious feeling, or like that feeling of like, oh, it's impossible for me, or I don't know, I can't do that. But you do it, or at least you start taking steps towards doing it. You build the confidence and the belief as you take those steps. Because we can say the affirmations and we can talk about it, think about it, but nothing happens, nothing's cultivated within until you actually start doing it, or at least attempting it, right? And I think it's like a skill. It's confidence can be built, and it's built through reps, through action.
Yep, I agree.
So I think I built the confidence was built during those beginning days for sure, but it was continued to be built upon throughout up until today. It still almost has to be earned today, even 15 years later. I'm still having to earn it.
No, 100%. And it's crazy, you're coming back from that and going through that. And I want to talk about and just transition to another pivotal milestone, that incredible note that you was talking about, basically learning how to walk again, to actually being in bodybuilding competitions and even completing that 100-mile bike ride. Then this, after doctors, I think, was said that you will never be able to handle that type of stuff, that physical activity, that stress on your body. What drove you to push your body to those extreme limits to say, forget what you say. I'm gonna do this, and this is what I can do, and to
I think
prove
it was to
them
prove
wrong.
them wrong.
Yeah,
Straight up. There's a little bit of me. Of course, there's a little bit of me just like over time.
yeah.
I think since I lacked that confidence when I was younger,
Mhm.
that like doing these things build confidence. It does. It builds confidence in me just like it would probably build confidence in anybody else when they do something tough, something with adversity, right?
Yeah,
But I think it was a little bit of like a stick to be like, oh, watch this.
yeah.
But then also just to build confidence in me, knowing that I can follow through on something, you know?
What was that
If I
feeling
say
like
I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it.
yeah, what was that feeling like?
Oh, miserable, miserable. So on that bike ride,
Yeah.
I trained for about 2 years to do it, and it took me
Mhm.
it shouldn't have taken 2 years to train for it. At least on paper, it
Yeah.
shouldn't have. But I had a few hiccups during training. I got some blood clots during it that
Wow.
I had to take time off from, and then I also fell off the bike. I was looking at my phone one day training, like
Mhm.
after a 15-mile ride or 20-mile ride. I was looking to see what my mileage was, and I go to look up as I'm riding, hit like a street cone, blew me off the bike, and I separated my shoulder, which put me off for a few months too. Uh, when I went to go do the 100-mile ride, I had planned all my food out, all my water, and the furthest I had ever ridden before that was 50 miles. And you're supposed to get a little bit further than that, you know, to like stretch yourself to get to that 100. But I was like, you know what, screw it. I've been pushing this off long enough. It's been 2 years. I'm going for it.
Yeah.
So I just picked a day and I said, all right, this Thursday, I'm doing it. No fans or buts. And went out to this trail that's in Richmond, Virginia. It's called the Virginia Capitol Trail. It's 50 miles one way. So rode all the way down one way, 50 miles. And I felt great doing the 50.
Yeah.
Ate some food, drank some water, blah, blah, blah. I started to come back. And about mile 70, that's when shit hit the fan. And wheels were coming off, you know, wheels were falling off. And I remember I called my wife and I was like, "Hey, I don't know if I can do this." You know, I literally I pulled over and sat down on the ground for a little bit. I was like, "I don't know, you might have to come pick me up." And she was like, "You know, I can if you want me to," but she also encouraged me to keep going
Yeah.
because I was already so close, which was awesome. I ended up just taking it 1 mile at a time after that, and literally broke it down like that. I was like, "All right, just one more mile, just one more mile, and you stack up enough miles, you'll do 100 of them, right?"
Man. Yeah, that's true.
Which it's easier said than done because even, you know, after you've just rode, it took me a little over 7.5 hours to do it. So once you're on a bike seat for 3 hours, you're kind of done.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, you kind of just tapped out. But it was awesome, man. A huge sense of accomplishment, but it definitely hurt once I got back. I was like, man, hey, for real. I haven't ridden the bike since, and that was like 3 years ago.
I was gonna
That
ask
day,
that,
I
like,
hung
have
it
you
up.
ridden the bike? You like, I'm
I hung it up straight up. I parked it and I haven't touched it since. I was like, you know, I'm done. Check, done.
you end on the win. I like that.
Yeah, straight up.
That's funny. My goodness, that's funny. Oh man.
Said no.
Yeah, you like, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I did what I said I was going to do. That's it.
Hey, in fact, as at some point, you shift from rebuilding yourself to, rebuilding your body to like really helping others rebuild themselves. And you found the gym flow coaching. What made you do that? Like, what made you? That's a huge life decision to say, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm getting in the gym. I think I'm pretty confident in what I'm doing. Now I really want to help others, maximize themselves. What made you want to do that?
So that was also like a flick of a switch too. Maybe around 2012. So I was in the rec 2010, started getting into working out, got that gym job, was working a front desk position. So wasn't training anybody then. I still really didn't know what I was doing most days. You know, I had zero experience. I was just going in there and just moving shit around.
Yep.
I just knew it felt good. Met a ton of trainers, people that used to work out at that gym. So I learned a lot from them and the trainers that were there, and ended up moving away from that small town that I was working at that gym and moved up towards Richmond, which is a bigger city here in Virginia, and worked at a Gold's Gym, worked out, got a membership. And I saw the other coaches there training and whatnot. I saw them, you know, tons of clients and whatnot. I was like, man, that looks pretty cool. That looks fun. Like, I enjoy the gym. I see what it's done for me in my life. It's only been a positive, a net positive, and a boost for my quality of life at that. So I was like, man, that would be something cool to focus on. The work that I was doing at the time was starting to die off. So it was at a crossroads where I was like, all right, well, am I going to pursue something else that I really don't like to do? Or am I going to go ahead and jump into something that I feel is calling?
Yeah.
So I reached out to the the training director there, and I was like, hey, I'm not certified, but I'd like to be a trainer. And he was like, hey, I've seen you around for a few years. You seem like you know what you're doing. You obviously take care of yourself. You have results yourself. He was like, you know what? I'll bring you on. If you can get certified within 60 days, we'll keep you. They took the leap. They took the chance on me. I got certified within 60 days and was able to become part of their team. And I probably worked there at that gym under their business model at a Gold's Gym for 5 years, 6 years.
Wow.
And then came to another turning point where I was like, all right, I'm not that I disliked training, but I disliked the way they were doing things. So I was like, all right, am I going to stay here and still be unhappy, or I'm going to just go ahead and spread my own wings and do my own thing? Took the leap again after building the confidence up over those years of learning how to train, learning the back end of it, whatnot. I don't think without building up some of those skills, I would have been as successful as the transition it was. So grateful for that stepping stone, but then went off and did my own thing. So started my own brand, picked up clients, word of mouth. You care, you give, make sure people get results. Their results are my results. Word of mouth happens and clients begin to stack up.
Yeah. So even after that, right? Like, when did it crystallize that this is my mission? What was that specific moment and that revelation that you had that you're guiding others to the next chapter of their journey in life?
I feel like it's not more so. It was I guess me seeing what it had done for me and realizing that like I needed to be a guide for this. It had helped me so much in my life that I needed to show others the way as well. Like, and others that maybe weren't in the same predicaments as me, like in a hospital bed or whatnot, but maybe on the way there, maybe about to lose their partner, maybe about to lose their job, maybe not happy with themselves. Many of the things that I was going through earlier in my life that could have been it's turned my life around to where I feel like I needed to do the same with others.
I like that. You wanted to give back.
Yeah.
Per se. Okay. Okay.
And also, after I started training and seeing how people not instantly, but very quickly began to show up different,
Yeah.
happier, more content, having more energy, like it's almost like contagious, it makes
Yeah.
you want more.
It's kind of crazy, in the same vein, like how you went from, in driftless, changing your direction, chasing each day with purpose and intent and breaking your self limits. Now, and that kind of stuck with me, like as you was just talking about it, how like it was so big with you that you was like, I just changed my life. I just want to help someone else. Man, that's amazing. What does chasing each day with purpose look like for you now?
Finding a way to either level up personally or
Mhm.
obviously within my business, my brand. And it's controlling those things that I can control. So controlling what I eat, what I drink, what I read,
Yeah.
who I hang out with, who I listen to, how I react to things as best as possible. I'm not perfect, I'm not a saint, but trying to focus on those things that I can do. That's the overall mission each day, is to get better than yesterday, right?
So, question. So, when it comes to those self-limiting beliefs that we all have, how do you train and people through those struggling periods to get out of that and then help them, be better? I guess.
Yeah. It's trying to realize a lot of people, even myself included, can tell themselves a story on why it's harder for them, or why they don't have something, or why it's not happening for them, whatever that may be. And the moment you can, like I mentioned earlier, is just focus on, all right, well, what can I do today though to change that? And what's within my control for the most part. Things like our job, the economy, Susie, Tom, Dick, Richard,
Yeah.
we can't control them. But what you can do is not let them affect you, not let them pull you down into bad habits or sabotaging lifestyle things, and focus on, all right, well, what can Austin do today, though, to stay aligned with his long-term vision, or the person he wants to become,
Yeah.
the person he wants to show up like? What's that future Austin look like?
Mm.
And trying to get habits aligned with that future person. And again, it's not always perfect. Some days you might have a case of the buckets and you go and do a little whatever.
Yeah.
But you also want to use like regret as your guide though. And when you do feel off or feel a certain way after you do something, whether it's an action or drinking something, eating something, or hanging out with somebody, and you're like, oh, I don't feel that good when I do that. Listen to that. That's getting like a signal saying, oh, that really isn't who I want to be or what I want to do, because I'm feeling a certain emotion when I do that. And that helps you keep alignment with the things that are going to propel you, not be anchors to you.
So how does that work when it comes to your relationships with people? Because I noticed, like you was how you talked about, you was kind of almost like the life of the party, where people they when they went to places they seen you and they probably saw you out in in town or whatnot, and they be like, oh, what's up, Austin? And now to see you with this big change, like how did that affect your relationship with people?
Some people that to change, you're going to have to change your identity. Like there's no, without identity change, you probably won't have long-term sustainable, like complete change within yourself. And for that, some people may have to not leave your life completely, but you may have to distance yourself. And a lot of the old people that I used to hang out with, not that I'm like, screw y'all, I ain't talking to you, I'm blocking you, but they're not on the path where I'm going. And that's okay. And it does take a while to like sort of swallow that and be like, okay, this might be a little lonely at times,
Yeah.
the beginning part of the journey.
Mhm.
But the thing is, as you continue to start to build yourself, develop yourself, and build better habits and a better version of yourself in general, you attract the right people over time,
Mhm.
new people, and people that may be also propellers towards the mission that you have for yourself or the place you want to go. Opportunities that might open up from these people because they're attracted to the new version of you, that higher version, hopefully,
Yeah.
you know.
No, yeah, and yeah.
So that's, I guess, people, you're gonna have to choose. You don't have to. I don't want to say it, and it's either or,
Yeah, yeah.
but you're gonna have to change your identity and probably your environment a little bit if you want to change at all. Like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't expect to do the same old same and hang out with the same old same and expect change or something different.
I tell
And
myself that.
going back after I nearly almost lost my life, this was me not changing my ways. I was released from that rehab center, got the job at the hospital or the gym, right?
Mhm.
Probably within a year was already almost arrested again being drunk because I fell back. I got back into what
Yeah.
I used to do,
Yeah.
expecting something was going to change, but nearly almost lost my life and was back in handcuffs, drunk, sitting on somebody's driveway. Fortunately, they let me go that night, but it was definitely, that was also another
Oh,
hot stove
same.
moment or a regret moment where I was like, that doesn't feel good. That feels like I'm going down the same old path again.
Yeah.
Let me not do that as much as possible anymore. Shortly after that, I moved back up or I moved away
Yeah.
from that area.
So that's amazing, man. Like, because a lot of times when we hear stories, especially of change, we hear always the good, right? We hear the bad, right? We hear, oh man, this situation happened, and then we hear the good, right? But we don't hear the intermediate, like
Yeah.
the struggle it took to get there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, maybe not that we're ashamed of our journey, but a lot of times people don't care to hear the intermediate. They just want to hear they want the prize,
Yeah. They want that Rocky scene where he's training and like then
Yeah.
he wins the championship. But there's like there's many times throughout this, not as of lately, during that 2 to 3 year stint of like transitioning and like
Mhm.
changing who I was and who I hung out with and what I did, like how I conducted myself. I would take 2 steps forward and then 3 steps backwards. There was many times I was doing that, even after the wreck and after the rehab center. One thing, a pillar that was always there though, that helped keep me. Uh, so let's think of like a boat out at sea.
Mhm.
That 1% difference in that boat over time can go like that.
Yeah.
Fitness, working out, having that job at the gym, or even if I didn't have the job, I still would have probably gotten a membership there. And having fitness be at least some type of pillar or foundational part of my life
Mhm.
and knowing how it made me feel. And again, like going back to feeling what makes me feel good and what doesn't make me feel good. That's a conscious thing that we all like. It's a skill. You got to be more aware with it. It takes time to build it, but like leaning into those things that just are good for you and makes you feel good
Yeah.
and trying to remove those things that don't make you feel so good, at least, that you're aware of. And
Yeah, yeah.
like I said, that instance was like, oh, that doesn't feel good. That I was literally on my way back. So at that point, I dove even harder into more discipline with fitness, exercise, stuff like that. Because when you're working out, you don't feel great after a night out and you go and try and work out the next day. So knowing, because I did that many times after the rehab center too, I'd go have a few beers with the same old crowd and would try and go to the gym the next day and feel like shit.
Yeah.
And then, my workouts didn't feel good. So like, no, the gym's more of a priority for me.
Yeah.
Like, and I made it more of a priority for me. So I wasn't going to let the drinking influence how the gym made me feel and how I felt
Mm,
about myself, that helped keep me aligned and like pulled me away each day that I was doing that, following through on it.
yeah.
It took time.
Yeah.
Took a ton of time.
And I'm glad that you said that because a lot of times people think change is like rapid, but it's not.
Yeah.
So you make a choice, but then you have to follow through. And I love one thing you said previous. You was talking about you go to the gym even if you don't feel like it. So
Yeah.
you got from your feelings to a consistent behavior where it's like no matter rain, sleet, snow, whatever it might be, I'm taking my ass to that gym and I'm gonna work out because at the end of the day, you know it's good for you no matter how
Yeah.
you're feeling. And that right there is like that's epic. That's very contagious. And now you know you coach hundreds of people through your foundation, your not foundation, sorry, your company Gym Flow, both online and in the
Yeah.
private gym. Which that's the online version. I know that's probably kind of crazy. Is there any transformation stories that really stick to you that perhaps the clients who came in they was feeling broken, lost, or completely not reassuring, and they turned themselves around?
Yes. So the first one that pops to mind is a client of mine named Kathy, and she's an older lady. She's currently now six. Hopefully, she doesn't listen to this because I'm going to butcher her age. I think she's 63, might be 64
Hmm.
now. But I met her when she was probably late 50s. When I first met her and started working with her, and she isn't my craziest like weight transformation. This is what I want to dive into. Like I've had people that have lost way more weight than her, way quicker, gotten way jacked. Like so, I have plenty of stories like that. Like that's
Yeah.
easy. The weight loss, building the muscle. It's the mental that's the tough part. And for
Mm,
Kathy, she showed up. I have a picture. It wouldn't work for a podcast, but
yeah, yeah,
I have a picture of her. What did she used to look like? Shoulders slumped in, staring at the ground.
yeah.
Like when you talk to her, super unconfident, like a weeping willow, just no confidence, super overweight,
Mhm.
and just had let herself go for years. Was a single mom, so had a lot to handle herself, and had just been beaten down. And she took a leap on coming in and getting training. Super anxious the whole time, out of breath, and not even doing anything. Just super anxious of exercising, like that type of out of breath, not from the workout. We hadn't even worked out yet. She was already out of breath, like having a panic attack. And we worked together for weeks, week after week. She would show up, and I would tell her, just keep showing up, just
Mhm.
keep showing up. Even if you don't feel like it, just keep showing up, and we're gonna make it one day at a time and just try to win the day, right? We're just trying to win one day at a time.
Yes.
And over time, she did lose a considerable amount of weight. I think she lost a little over 70 pounds with me.
Wow.
But the confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a like literally the beginning picture and one of her like more recent like after pictures. I mean, smiling ear to ear,
Yeah.
chest up, shoulders broad, like color in her face. I mean, it's crazy. And she's been working through some things. Obviously, life hits and whatnot. So
Yeah.
she's we've been on and off as far as working together, but she was definitely probably one of my biggest turnarounds as far as building confidence and literally taking leaps on new jobs and career paths. Like it's
Mhm.
bigger than just vanity. Exercise, fitness, coaching, getting this mindset training, this mental toughness, building your mindset. And mindset training is just doing the things you don't want to do when you don't want to do it, pretty much. It's that
Mhm.
simple. And it doesn't have to be something physical, but it could be something you're just procrastinating about and just doing it anyways. That's how you build the grit, the mindset to follow through. And for herself, I mean, she definitely she had a huge transformation, life like full life round.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yo, see, that's the change I'm talking about because I know, like, I have a friend who he was training me before I had to get shoulder surgery, and now, like, my one of my arms are bigger than the other, and I'm trying to get back in the gym and get working out. So, but the mentality of going to the gym, I was waking up 3 o'clock every morning, taking my butt to the gym, working out, and I didn't like it at first, of course. And then the workouts he had, he was very extreme. The dude was just like jack for no reason, you know. And long story short, he gave me something that I didn't have enough money to pay for. Like that self-confidence and stuff that you were saying that
Oh, dude.
that
Yeah.
man, it's just
Priceless. Priceless, man.
and to this day I don't know if he knows. I mean I told him, but I really don't know. Maybe he heard it before, from having clients before, and you probably heard it as well, where people are like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And maybe it doesn't
Yes.
really resonate with you, but man, what you do. I'm just gonna say what you do is so needed. I put you on the level of a teacher, where you have an impressionable student and you're
Yeah.
like molding and what I'm saying, crafting them because we so need it. And man,
Yeah.
I'm just so thankful. I'm so thankful.
People don't know what they don't know, and until you like take those steps into developing yourself physically, and not
Yeah.
only physically but mentally, with strenuous exercise. Not saying it's the 100-mile bike rides, but like just
Yeah.
exercising tough for wherever you're at in your life.
Yeah.
Doing something kind of tough and adverse. It builds a lot more than just the body,
Yeah.
and your self talk, like you were mentioning, the self confidence, self talk is like one of the most important things about us. It's like if that's not there, if it's not good, a positive self talk, you're not going to be probably progressing much with anything because you won't have that confidence. You'll be doubting everything.
Yeah.
You'll never take the steps to do anything because you
Yeah.
won't have that great self talk in yourself. And you can build that through controlling what you do, your exercise, what you eat, what you drank, shit like that. It's all things we can't control. We just have to make the time and be aware with.
Heck yeah. And obviously you fought the physical battle to recovery, that physical battle. But what about that mental battle? In your experience, what was harder? I mean, we kind of alluded to it, but rebuilding your body or rebuilding your mind and spirit?
I think it wasn't even rebuilding my mind; it was building my mind. Because it wasn't really there to begin with, and that's why I got into that situation because I lacked confidence. I didn't believe in myself. I used those things to build belief and build confidence in myself, and that's what ultimately was my demise. So I think that the toughest part, of course, physical is there. I mean, regardless, physical is there, but the toughest part was just developing this from the get go, from like horrible self talk and obviously lack of confidence.
Yeah. Did you have to forgive yourself from your past mistakes or stop seeing yourself as a victim to have this transformation and change?
Well, yeah, I needed for sure not like to stop. I don't know if I forgave myself per se,
Uh-huh.
but I did. There was a point in time, and even now, it's gotten more defined and more aware. Like I mentioned earlier, like realizing that I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim of the circumstances. I'm a victim of the choices that I made. I'm a victim of making those bad decisions.
Yeah.
Those are mine. So I'm not. I wasn't a victim at all. And at first, I had the woe is me,
Yeah.
but not anymore.
And that's, what you did, taking ownership for your life is truly meaningful. You know what I'm saying? How did that teach you personal responsibility to someone to stick around from that victim mentality to being what you are now as a business owner, a husband, and I believe you're, what I'm saying, and just an overall pillar in your community?
Yeah. Well, it's thinking about there's a few things that help keep me going forward with staying disciplined with fitness, with my health, and all those things is realizing that I'm only as good as the example I set.
Mhm.
And also that what would the future version of me think?
Mm,
What would that future version of Austin think of like, oh, there he goes. He missed again. He skipped again. He avoided it again. That shit does eat you up if you start to think about it. You're like, man, if am I going to be in the same place a year from now or 5 years from now, where whatever that place may be, like the
mhm.
seat in life that you're in. If you don't take the actions today, that might be the case. It's what we do with today,
Yeah.
and I think that's what brings that accountability.
I totally agree. On social media, and I scroll through your social media, and you project a lot of strength and consistency in what you do. But you also wrote in one of your Instagram posts, you said the opportunity to live by an example and lead. Keep showing up and overcoming one day at a time.
Yeah.
Where did that quote come from?
It was mainly from hearing that I think it was I forget what football coach it is, but and I can't believe it's not coming to mind, but he says that leading by example is not the only way the leading by example is not the only way to lead, it's the best way to lead.
Mm,
And I might
mm,
have butchered that too. But having the opportunity through the things that I've been through, healing myself, and helping guide others do the same. It's like I feel like that's what I'm kind of here for, and that's why I sort of push through. I'm not very religious or anything like that, but
yeah.
I do believe like there's a certain reason why I was able to push through, and maybe I'm here to be that example, so people don't do what I did and or have to go that deep into like rock bottom before they can realize that they can turn things around now.
Man, that's crazy. So I got a question for you. Like a lot of people are listening, especially we don't know when people are gonna pick up this podcast, might be in a dark place in their lives. Maybe not as like in a fatal car accident, but probably dealing with some mental issues, thought processes,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. If someone there was feeling trapped in their own vices and limitations, what's the first step you would suggest that they take after hearing your story?
Start typically, because if you're in a deep dark spot, you feel like nothing, like it's pointless probably, and that nothing's going with you, it's all against you type of deal. And you may not have many options as far as like, finding a coach or a mentor or somebody that can guide you, or time collapse or tell you what the next step is. The next step should be then is starting with within, and that's by trying to remove some of those things that are anchors that legitimately are, like the alcohol, the drugs, the partying, shit like that, as much as possible, and focusing in on, all right, well, what can I do to get myself out of this situation? Let me maybe read some stuff, maybe learn something through some personal development books. Let me get on social media and use it as a tool. Maybe find some people that I admire, watch how they conduct themselves day to day, and start to do some of the things that they do. So I think that's a good example to probably start with, is we all probably either follow somebody on Instagram or social media nowadays, or maybe somebody around you in your life that you admire, right? Whether it's somebody's dad or somebody's brother, or, or somebody on, like I said, on social media that you're like, man, that guy's got it going on. I like the way he shows up. He just has it figured out, and he just shows up and he doesn't miss, right? Like he's just nailing. I want a little bit of that too. I want some of that in my life. And I'm not saying like the financial stuff and like, oh, what do they drive? Where do they live type of deal. It's like, no, how does this person conduct themselves throughout their day?
Yeah.
Do they sleep in? Do they probably, dick around all day and play hee haw? Or are they probably, knocking out a workout? Are they building themselves up physically?
Yeah.
Are they probably into some type of personal development work as far as reading some type of book that would give them some type of edge or nugget to get some positive forward thinking? And again, it's all relating back to those things that you can't control, the physical, working out, probably watching what they probably eat. They aren't probably going out for beers every day after work. They're probably avoiding that. There's, and it depends on maybe who you admire. If the person you admire does all that stuff, then go for it. But for the most part, there's somebody that you deep down know that you're like, damn. And you don't have to become them. That's what I'm not saying. I'm just saying you're pulling some habits that they might do that have built the person that they are over time, and start implementing those things into your own life. And that's a good place to start. If you're unsure of who you are, find somebody you admire, start to implement some of those things that they might do in their life into yours. And as you walk that path, the light will begin to illuminate the path, so you'll be like, okay, I know that I noticed this now. I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to add this into my day. I'm going to start doing this too, because this feels good. Or, the path illuminates as you walk it. So find somebody you admire, start to implement some of the habits, the good habits, at least, of what they do, probably how they conduct themselves day to day, and start taking actionable steps on that. That's free.
As a physical fitness coach with a thriving physical, like person to person business and online business, what is the craziest thing that you had to mentor somebody through as you was, working with them, working them out, and they, feel close to you and confided something in you? What's the craziest thing that you had to mentor them through?
So I've had a couple people that I've worked with that I haven't worked with them directly through it, but along with it,
Yes.
addiction. So addiction to drugs, and like not just like drugs isn't like weed, but like heroin, like the hard drugs.
Okay.
And working along with them while they're working with other groups, because for addiction, I'm not an addiction specialist by any
Yeah.
means. So like, but working along with them to help build better habits that would help keep them aligned from going back into those old habits, right?
Mhm.
Like I mentioned, when you're steadily making deposits into yourself
Yeah.
physically with these workouts or exercise, or bringing discipline to your food, it's hard to neglect or trash something that you're putting so much effort into, if you know what I'm saying. So like, say for example, you start to get somewhat consistent with a workout routine, you're starting to get consistent with your food, and the deeper you get into it, the more pride you built with it, the more identity, or the more votes you cast into that new identity, right? Every time you take that action towards that goal, you're casting votes into that new identity, that new version of you. And that when it comes time to maybe do some of those old habits of like going for that maybe group of friends that have bad habits, or going out for drinks or whatever, you're typically like, nah, I put in so much work into this now. Like, I don't want to trash or disregard all that hard work that I just did or am doing. And I just know how it makes me feel. That was a little long tangent, but that's how many of these people that I work with, whether they're going through sobriety, recovery, or addiction per se, that's probably the craziest thing that I've probably worked with. Nobody's ever like came up to me and be like, "Hey man, I killed somebody. Don't tell nobody." But so nothing super crazy. I mean, I guess just drugs.
Yeah. And that's crazy enough. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
that's one thing you said that was very, very really good is when you was talking about daily deposits within yourself. And I thought about this, in the analogy of a bank. If you're constantly doing daily deposits, that compound interest comes on, and then it just like boom, one day you're doing your daily deposits and then you start seeing a change, or somebody tells you that they see a change, where you working out and then you're feeling bad, and then someone's like, "Hey man, you're getting pretty big over there," and you're like,
Yeah.
"Snap! Oh yeah, I am. Yeah, I got to find." And
Or
so,
the
do,
opposite.
do
You
you
lost a
see
ton
that
of
a
weight,
do you see that a lot with your clients, where
Yeah.
they start off and then until they realize it, you see that shift?
Yeah. I mean, just recently I had a client that had been wearing like baggy, like long sleeve shirts and hoodies a lot when he worked out or just when he went out in general. And he was like, "Yo, I wore a tank top the other day." And he's like, "My girl complimented on me, said that I'm starting to shape up." He's like, "Dude, it's really, things are really clicking."
Yeah.
And, we're all our own worst critic. We see ourselves every day in the mirror. We're never big enough, or we're never jacked enough. We're never lean enough. We're never ripped enough. We're always never big enough, for guys at least. I'm sure chicks, it's the opposite. Never skinny enough, blah, blah, blah. So we're never enough. We're our own worst critics. So it's always great to have that outside feed of like, all right, I am doing something right. And it made me think of this thing that I heard from a guy that I follow. And he broke it down as what's called a progress curve and like an arc. So it's almost like a graph. Let's start from zero and the arc goes up like this. For the fitness sake, or like getting results, progress with your body, your mind, overall just self-development. You're starting off on day one. You plant the seed in the ground. All right. Where the hell's the sprout though? Where the hell's the crop? The corn. Let's call it a corn seed. You put the seed in the ground. Where the hell's the corn? I put it in the ground. That was day one, right? But no, it takes daily deposits of water, nurturing it, giving it attention daily without seeing results. All right. You plant a seed in the ground. You won't see results for 14, 20, 27, 30 days from now, right? But you continue to water it because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Just like working out, you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to eat a little bit better, at least not eat like a piece of crap, and do something, move your body, take care of yourself. And you're doing it even though you don't see results right now. And then that progress arc, that's how that works, is 14, 21, wherever, everybody's bodies takes a little bit. Your inputs equal your outputs. So however much input you're getting, you might see it quicker. If you're not giving it much input, you might take a little longer. But if you continuously can do it though, over time, 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, boom, you start to get that compliment. Oh, damn. And that's where the little bit of green starts to pop out the ground. He's like, "Oh shit, you are starting to lose some weight, man. You look a little slim, man. You're looking good. You're looking lean." And then next thing you know, they're like, "Oh shit, man, you're jacked now." They're 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, it probably might take longer than that, but you get what I'm saying.
100%.
You have to do the work in faith, knowing that, all right, this is what I know I should be doing, and do it anyways, even if you don't see the results today.
I like that. Do the work in faith. Wow,
Yeah.
I like that. I'm gonna write that down. I usually like to take one thing from a person when I interview them. Oh man, yeah, I'm taking that down. Yeah, most definitely. That's gold right there. That is gold. Being a gym owner, what's next on the horizon for you?
So I've only been doing my online coaching with my private app for about a year now. And I want to dive even further into that and reach more people, which over the past months, I've been gaining more clients with it. So it's definitely paying off as far as word of mouth, content on social media, getting eyeballs, engagement, and just letting people know what I do and how some of the daily processes that I've implemented in my life have helped change me and my clients. So I want to continue focusing on that because I'm able to reach more people that way. I'm only able to train so many people in person, so many hours of the day.
Yeah.
And outside of that, with my app, I'm able to reach a hell of a lot more people and help get people moving. And it's almost like a spider web effect, For example, I have a guy that recently joined my group. in Pennsylvania. His name's Greg. I get Greg rocking and rolling with some better habits, better lifestyle, being an example for his wife too, because he's married, and the people around him, his colleagues and whatnot. Next thing you know, Greg starts to get a little in shape. He starts building some better habits, some more discipline. He starts to show up at work, and they're like, "Damn, Greg, you got it going on, dude. What the hell are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh, this is the way I am now." Blah blah blah. And people around him, it becomes contagious, and they're like, "Oh shit,
Mm.
Greg's leveling up. I can do that too. I might start doing that. What you doing, Greg? How you doing it?" Next thing you know, it spiderwebs out and makes his group better. And
Yeah.
it's real cool to see that happen. Especially a lot of people within my group, they start to refer their families, their friends, and like shit, everybody starts to see, and it's contagious progress. People love it. That's what fuels the soul. People see other people. I mean, there are crabs in the bucket where some people are like, "Oh, what are y'all doing? I'm gonna pull you back down." But very rarely. It's most people, they want to get better too. And if you can lead the way and at least start taking those steps and realizing that you're only as good as the example you set, and that also, if I don't do it, who is? Like, if not me, then who? Nobody's going to give you permission to start taking action. You've got to go ahead and start doing it, right? So I don't know. That's how everybody gets better. So that's something that I want to focus on is my online portion.
And what's the name of your app?
So my app is called Gym Flow Coach.
Okay, Gymflow Coach. Yep. So everyone, please go out to Gymflow Coach. Go to gymflowcoach.com. I've been to your website. So
Yeah.
and man, it's pretty. I like the website. I like the
Thank
website.
you, man. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. So thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you. And I'm gonna end it with this: drink some water, lift something heavy, and stop crying in the group chat.
Let's
Catch
do
you
it.
next time on Unfiltered Fridays. Love you guys. Peace.